Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Before we get started on the episode, just a quick reminder for everyone listening and following us on YouTube and Spotify and Apple Podcasts or Google Podcast um, to press that follow button, subscribe us on YouTube, and rate us on Spotify. I've just realized that you're able to rate episodes and podcasts and shows on Spotify. If you have a Spotify account, you are just free to join, so it's free everywhere. So if you can just drop in a rating, 5 stars, that would just make it easier for other people to also discover the show and the podcast and 80 odd episodes that I have so far. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. This is a very good discussion with Zan, and here we go. Cheers. Hello and welcome to a very special edition of the Drawing Room Experts, very close to what we are going through right now as a world community, and I felt like, because I've already done an impromptu episode on a separate matter of this particular news, which is the Russia and Ukraine conflict or invasion, however you want to look at it. So मैंने सोचा कि let's just have a discussion about that, as I've already touched based on basically the aspect of the Pakistani Prime Minister when he was in Russia during the whole invasion or the attack was happening, which I will want to get Zan's feedback on as well, and basically go from there and put our thoughts into this podcast. That's the purpose. Zan, how's it going?
Good. Yeah, a lot to get into. A lot going on geopolitically. It's weird because it's always one thing after the other. There is no lull anymore in the news cycle, or maybe everything is so magnified that it doesn't feel like it. But
yeah, and so without wasting any time, I think let's just get into it. I mean, have you been following closely this conflict ever since? And to be honest, it started some time back. This is not a very recent development. This did not happen overnight. Have you been following it since the NATO thing started, when they were trying to expand and bring in Ukraine?
I think it really came into my conscious view post the Crimea. I don't even know. See.
Oh, yeah.
But that's where it really
annexation
of Crimea. That I think uske baad se both countries did not, but I think around that time they have technically been at a standoff, if not in a state of war. But I think that's when it really sort of came to my notice.
Right.
From a political standpoint. Obviously, this conflict predates that. I mean, this conflict among many really spawned out of the end of the Soviet Union and several satellite states
right,
that were created as a result of it.
Right.
I mean, this is not neither here nor there. The interesting thing I was hearing was ये इशू शायद पैदा ना होता अगर यूक्रेन के पास nukes होते.
Nuclear, yeah.
Some foreign policy expert on Twitter, of course, chimed in and said,
and मेरा opinion ये है, हाँ, और मेरा opinion ये है कि everyone on Twitter is a Harvard grad in foreign policy, so obviously they can have that opinion in their defense.
हमसे पूछेंगे क्या करना चाहिए था, क्या issues.
Yes.
And everyone's all of a sudden an expert on Soviet history and whatnot. But one thing that
thank you AQ Khan भी चल रहा था. Did you see that?
I did see that.
Seriously चल रहा था.
Yeah, I know people thinking कि अगर हमारे साथ भी ऐसा हो चुका होता. I don't know, man. People just क्या कहते हैं इसे confirmation bias, right? People just looking for
एक तो self-absorbance
confirm their biases.
I know. एक तो self-absorbance की भी हद होती है कि this whole World War III level conflict that is happening right now, हम उसमें relevant कैसे हो गए and why do we want to be
For
relevant?
some reason we would have been at the center of it. ये चीज जो है आज की नहीं है, आज से नहीं, I think बचपन से मैं सुनता आ रहा हूँ कि everyone's out to get us because we're so important. Like बचपन में सुनते आ रहा हूँ कि इसराइल पाकिस्तान के पीछे है, अमेरिका पाकिस्तान के पीछे है, रशिया तो था ही था, इंडिया से
और
दुश्मनी है.
हाँ, और ये वर्ल्ड वॉर 3 इसलिए हो रहा है क्योंकि अपना वो बन रहा था, जो जो गैस पाइपलाइन बन रही थी जिससे पाकिस्तान को फायदा होना था, तो
Yeah,
ऑब्वियसली
I
यू
just I
वांट
just
दैट.
want to know, okay, what do we have that the world craves so much? I want to see it. I mean, we're
पर
neither
जुनेद
better
अकरम
nor worse in many
पर
aspects from a strategic standpoint. क्या है पाकिस्तान के पास भाई, ऐसा ऐसा कैसा
पर
मतलब भाई टुकड़ा
पर
जो है जमीन का, I don't
जुनेद
know
अकरम
why it's so.
पर जुनेद अकरम, we have the art of smelling तरबूज and finding out if it's sweet or not.
पक्का है नहीं कुछ. Yeah.
इसके अलावा हमारे पास और इस तरह के छोटे मोटे हैं हमारे पास आर्ट
कौन सी
फॉर्म्स.
शिपिंग लेन है पाकिस्तान की तरफ से, अगर कुछ जैसे सुएज कनाल में कुछ इश्यू हो जाए तो पूरी दुनिया के लग जाती है, आई गेट इट राइट. बट पाकिस्तान के पास ऐसा है कि आई मीन आई अंडरस्टैंड इट्स नॉट कंप्लीटली आइसोलेटेड, इट्स नॉट
हाँ,
लाइक,
एब्सोल्युटली, कि कोई
I
वो
mean, it
नहीं
is
है
an
कि
important space and it's in an important neighborhood from the sense that यार हर कोई हमारे around is either like heavily armed, militarized, or they have nuclear weapons. So it's a very dangerous neighborhood. I get that. But yeah, I mean, the foreign policy expert that I was referring to was saying कि
हाँ,
अगर यूक्रेन के पास न्यूक्स होते हैं तो उनके साथ ऐसा ना होता. फिर दूसरे भाई आए, उन्होंने फरमाया कि यूक्रेन के पास न्यूक्स थे but they gave it up.
they gave it up, yes.
Yeah, which is again funny because I'm not an expert in Soviet history, so I looked it up. Like, did they have it, or did they voluntarily say कि यार हम NPT में जा रहे हैं, या हमारे nukes ले लो? It wasn't like that at all. It was actually Soviet nukes that Russia took back once everything was
Yeah,
divided. So
yeah,
उनके पास nukes अगर physically थे भी, they didn't have the keys to it, right? They could not
yeah,
have
yeah.
launched it because they weren't the governing authority of those nukes. So they didn't actually give it up. It was just
So
taken away from them because it didn't belong to them, right?
in effect, they never had nukes essentially.
They didn't have nukes. Yeah,
So
so
that's an
it's just
irrelevant thing. We're like
completely
फालतू का एक
irrelevant
trend
thing.
था.
Like, अब उनको फिर, I just don't understand. Like, are you saying that they were peace-loving people and they gave it up? देखो उनके साथ क्या हो
And
रहा है?
that's
I
and
don't
that's
know.
neither
It's
here or
all
there. That's them being
narratives
peace
for some
loving.
reason.
Yeah, that them being peace loving and all of that is just it has no bearing on the current conflict. It doesn't
Yep.
mean कि conflict सिर्फ उन्हीं countries के साथ होता है जो peace loving होती हैं, ऐसा नहीं है. That's not the case. So bringing the fact that they're peace loving or they're not peace loving, it's neither here nor there, right? और दूसरी चीज ये है
Yeah.
कि this loathing, you'll see, or basically जो pylon जो Western media करने वाली in the next few days and weeks,
It is nauseating, actually.
it's gonna be nauseating because now they're going to create this image of Ukrainian people who are like I don't know, like Syrians in this massive conflict, and they're like running, and they're yes, there's going to be human loss, and uske ek reality exists karti hai. But the thing is कि it makes me sick कि when that's the lead that you take in creating a narrative, right? You always take the emotional lead, right? And that's fine, but then आप उसको consistently follow through करो ना फिर.
Right.
Have the same kind of nauseating, as you just said, lead in when you're reporting matters relating to Yemen, war in Yemen.
Yeah, exactly.
Or Afghanistan even. I mean, क्या 20 साल तक when Afghanistan was occupied,
Right.
was there ever a human discussion around कि यार actually वहां पर जो अवाम रह रही है,
I want to play
तालिबान
like spot the difference here. Like, just tell me what the difference is in 3 scenarios, I'll say, right? Country
Yeah.
A feels threatened because a foreign power is going to use a neighbor's location to threaten them, right?
Yes.
So country A invades their neighbor.
Yep.
Is that Russia, Ukraine? Is that Saudi Arab, Yemen? Is that United States and Iraq? They're all there. They all fit this description.
Absolutely.
So why is one worse than the other? I'm not justifying Russian actions. I'm not saying कि भाई मैं Russia का supporter हूँ या Putin is the chess grandmaster of the world. I don't know. He may be. I may not be. I don't know. But why is the West pontificating when they don't have any moral authority to do so? They actually should be the lowest on the list of people that are actually telling
Or
others what
expecting
to
other
do,
countries, exactly.
or they're talking about what moral behavior consists of. Well, yes, I
Acha,
outrage is the part of it too. Like, where was this outrage when they were annexing or destroying countries in the Middle East, destabilizing governments in South America, Central America? Where was this outrage? Why is that so accepted and seen as normal when the CIA is doing it? I just don't understand it.
तो मैं वही तो बता रहा हूँ तुम्हें कि अब तुम्हारी बात 100% मैं एग्री करता हूँ उससे, but let me just play the devil's advocate for 1 second, क्योंकि मैं यही बात कर रहा था. And then I all of a sudden मैं अपने आप से जब ये चीज, like I was discussing this and I was thinking about it, one thing that popped in my head was कि यार am I exercising whataboutism, something that I've been been against all
Right.
this time, कि यार कि और जो मैं क्रिटिसाइज भी करता हूँ कि लोग बोलते हैं ना कि यार अगर फॉर एग्जांपल इफ यू स्टैंडिंग अप फॉर समथिंग लाइक यार आप तब कहाँ थे, या आपने तब क्यों नहीं किया ये वो ना. तो बेसिकली उस चीज को लोग कहते हैं कि यार ये तो आप, यानी कि देयर इज नो विन हियर, एवरी टाइम देयर इज समथिंग,
There's always going to be
यार
an
उस वक्त
occasion
क्या
for
था
one.
उसके,
Yeah.
राइट. तो what you just described isn't that falling in the same category?
Okay, so in a way, it sure is in the sense that it is whataboutism, but I think we need to temper our reactions with what's going on in the world and contextualize it, because and that's not whataboutism in the classic sense, because I'm not trying to deflect from the fact that there's a war going on, there's foreign aggression. What I am trying to illuminate is that it doesn't become a valid catastrophic, humanitarian crisis when one country does it as opposed to the other, right?
Yeah.
And because if you are, by recognizing one and not the other, you're creating this geopolitical space where there isn't an equity in actions, or one country can have a monopoly over committing atrocities without having to pay for it, quote unquote, while the other doesn't. So it's just, that's why it sort of rankles with me. But at the same time, before we get into that, let's examine why this is happening, right? Like, why is Russia doing it? First of all, I fundamentally think war is a poor strategic choice. Generally, it's not the answer. Never going to.
It creates more problems.
That. I condemn acts of violence, whether they're individual or state sponsored. Yep. And war definitely fits into that category. And 99.9% of the people, they didn't ask for it, I don't think, on both sides, and they're suffering from it because of a greater ambitions of people who are leading such countries. But why did Russia feel obligated to act in this way? I mean, the Russian point of view is, generally speaking, and I'm sort of paraphrasing, is Ukraine was about to get into a NATO treaty with NATO aligned allied countries, which would have meant that foreign weapons or foreign weaponry would be on Russia's doorstep, which is Ukraine, right?
Right.
So before they became part of NATO, because once you're part of NATO, I think there's a clause or section 5, कि अगर कोई NATO country attack होगी, तो we're treating
every NATO country
attack होगी, right? Basically, it's like in sort of on almost an empire method, like sort of mindset, right?
Right.
So I think what went on in Putin's calculus was, let's eliminate that threat or annex it before they even become part of NATO, right? And they felt like it was Western aggression that was pushing him to that point, as opposed to him trying to just expand his empire like the Third Reich or whatever, right? Because I don't think that's an appropriate comparison. They're different. I think it's another problem with what I notice out there is just the lazy discourse. कि हर चीज का comparison या तो Hitler से होता है या World War II से होता है. Everything
Nazis.
is that.
Yeah, everything is Nazis.
And it's funny though. I mean, do you follow Ukraine's page, like Twitter page? I don't even know why country has it, but they do. And as their country is getting invaded, they're like posting memes on there with like Hitler and Putin and stuff like that, which is just a funny, just juxtaposition against what was going on in the world. It was weird, but yeah, I'm hesitant about this lazy comparison with everything that is happening going on with World War II and Hitler and whatever and the Axis. But मेरे कहने का मकसद ये है कि the underlying reason, quote unquote, why Russia felt obligated to invade Ukraine was the NATO threat.
And is it true as well? Because I also read something, and I agree with it. I say exactly that's the point. And to Putin's, I don't know, like this is something that he's been repeating like for months prior to this actual action happening, right? And when there were a lot of European leaders visiting Russia, try to like resolve this and say, hey, dude, let's not get into a conflict. This was his only ask. They were like, hey, just don't bring in NATO here and we're done. Like, we don't have to do this.
Eastern Europe may don't bring NATO in, basically.
Don't bring NATO in. And then one thing that I read, I'm not sure if it's true or not, but is it true that there was some sort of like an agreement post World War II where this was not allowed to happen, where they can't really bring in and was that some sort of an understanding between the NATO countries or NATO allies that, hey, you cannot do this, and now they all of a sudden want to do this?
I mean, there was a new world order right after World War, and I think even if there was something like that, maybe the Western countries felt like that did not apply since the Cold War, because obviously Soviet Union does not exist
anymore. So technically,
they
like
had a treaty with a country that does not exist, basically.
Right.
So it's invalid, so on and so forth. Which legally, I think it makes sense. The argument. It's just that the whole concept of NATO is something that just sits uncomfortably with me. I think I'm not the only.
What's the American narrative on this? What's the NATO's narrative, and why do they need Ukraine? Is it because of the fact that they had that annexure and they were like, we have to support this country because
and I think they see Russia as a geopolitical threat, right? I mean,
no, I mean that's no surprise, right? Obviously, that's the thing, but I'm sure that's not what they're leading in with, right? Oh, because you're a threat, now we're gonna bring.
No. They're saying,
what's the on paper reason?
On paper is like, we want to. Ukraine is our ally. We want to ensure their sovereignty and deter aggression and all the humanitarian reasons, right? Now, what iske saath ek aur interesting cheez ye ho rahi hai, it's really basically pushing Russia and China together, because if you look at China's response, they gave the token response ki
war is never the answer.
Peaceful तरीके से इस मामले को खत्म करें, whatever, but they never condemn.
They're not going to put sanctions. Yeah, they're not going to put sanctions on them. Let's be honest. Yeah.
And I mean, strategically, I think why Putin chose this time was because of oil prices. They're high, so they're actually making bank based on that. So what they're trying to do is it's almost a chess move. Like, oil prices are already really high. If you put sanctions, they're going to drive them through the roof. Do you want to put that inflationary pressure on yourself? I mean, that's Russia talking to the Western countries. So they're almost like a dare.
Yeah.
Which is why he timed it this way, I feel. Not that I'm a foreign policy expert, but it really adds that complication. And the average Joe who goes to the gas station and sees the gas prices like going through the roof, and then they look at the leaders saying we're doing it for Ukraine. I don't know how easy of a sell it is these days, because I just think compared to 20-30 years ago, people are just so averse to foreign conflicts and their involvement in it. And which is why, again, I don't even know how many people would even agree with the concept of NATO in the first place, because it's just that country building, empire building exercise that I just think generally people are tired of. And
to Trump's point, I think he was right. He was bang on about NATO. He was like, why the fuck are we protecting these other countries?
Yeah.
And how come we have so much money?
One of the things he pointed out, which I was quite interesting and true, was why are we protecting Germany via NATO and against Russia? So the idea is NATO is protecting Germany against Russia because they're beside each other. But at the same time, Germany is buying all of its oil from Russia. They have billions of dollars in trade. Like, why are we protecting you again with your
against a trade partner?
This makes no sense. And again, nation building, empire building exercise. I just don't understand the whole concept of it. It's so convoluted. So,
and that's the thing.
One thing then Yeah, go on.
that's the thing. The reason why this is creating like this image of whataboutism, if any were to read into what we're saying here, that "Abhi yaar, ye to these guys are just deflecting or trying to deflect off an actual humanitarian crisis." That's not the point. The point is, it sometimes, the people who've been crying wolf, we basically, it's the boy who cried wolf, right? This is the same boy who cried wolf with Iraq. This is the same boy who cried wolf with Vietnam. Same with
Yep.
a bunch of African countries,
El
Middle East,
Salvador,
Salvador, South America. So
Central
this is the same guy
America.
who has been wrong about all of these international crises, quote unquote, time after time after time, has no record. Okay? Even then, me and Zain are willing to admit that yes, there might be issues, right? There might be problems with Russia, there might be problems with the people of Ukraine, heart goes out to them. But the thing is that if they can just separate themselves from this message, maybe they would do this whole campaign, if you like, of serving the people of Ukraine a service. If they can say, you know what, we're not going to get into this because our voice will bring the integrity of this whole campaign down. This is like Ali Zafar joining Aurat March, alleged, issues with him.
Right, right,
But
right.
Aurat March people would say, yeah, bro, that's fine. We appreciate your support, but you're going to actually taint us. So
Yeah.
if you really want to support our cause, let's just, just stay away from it and
Yeah, I mean, like
support from
Harvey
afar.
Weinstein joining it or something.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly,
It's just
exactly. To some things, they hurt the cause more by you taking actions or joining them as opposed to not joining them. So the reason why we're having this whataboutism kind of type discussions is because the person who is making the most noise is the guy who's been wrong about everything, has no credibility, has no success rate when it comes to international ventures. So
yeah, and I'm glad to
obviously,
see that people aren't really pushing for troops on the ground kind of situation or
which
solution.
is strange though, right? Because I read somewhere that Republicans here are almost kind of like in the Russian camp almost.
It's weird how the roles have reversed on this side.
Isn't it?
Republicans
Isn't
like
it?
20 years ago used to be like the biggest war hawks in the whole entire world. Like कुछ भी हो जाए बस troop भेज दो,
Hmm.
जंगें लड़ा लो. And they're almost now they're saying, Russia got us, almost like that in that sense. Yeah, they're almost saying that Russia is acting rationally in the sense without actually saying it that in so many words. And
Is that the official stance of let's say Mitch McConnell and all of that?
no, but Trump basically said it essentially. Although,
Trump तो शायद चलो एक outlier है ना, in the sense कि
yeah,
यार he's not but has there
doesn't
been a response from Mitch McConnell being the opposition leader or something?
no. I mean, Mitch McConnell is just most useless.
Because I saw like someone sharing a tweet gave I think
Mitch McConnell's
Ted
probably more
Cruz.
worried about this new Supreme Court nominee because I think he's like
हाँ
he has a fetish for these procedural things जो हो रही होती हैं.
हाँ वो अजीब हाँ
मतलब जो ऐसी
खपती है
नॉमिनेट कर दिया उस पर लड़ना मतलब बिल्कुल फालतू की जो चीजें हैं ना उसमें
हाँ
you'll see him involved and
हाँ
then there's actually something of substance going on. He'll be like, I don't know, like he's
anonymous.
the most
Like
useless.
Ted Cruz, I
He's
think
the
maybe, or
person.
someone from the party said कि basically Biden की video share करके they were like, look at this weak man, when Biden was kind of like, so I was like, are they saying that he should like send troops or like what? Because if he's now putting sanctions, Biden, on Russia, and Russia already said that if you're going to put sanction on us, we're going to take this as an act of war against us.
So with Biden, I think he's in a no-win situation almost, which is tough for him
And
because if he puts
unbelievably,
sanctions, what will result in high inflation and stuff like that, right? It will result
there
in
are
that.
people already, there are
And
people
that's
already
people already had
bullshitting him.
enough. वो बोलेंगे भाई वैसे ही हमारी गैस बढ़ी हुई है इतनी इन्फ्लेशन इतनी पड़ जा रही है आपने
हाँ
और अपना हिस्सा लिया and now you're basically creating an economic crisis which was avoidable. That's basically alternative one. Alternative
and
two.
and it's 100%. It all was avoidable. Like they didn't have to do this, especially when they were जो समझ लो कि एक clout, in my opinion, that Biden had accumulated when he decided to get out of Afghanistan, and I felt like it was a good decision from a perspective. Yeah,
I thought it was a good decision.
Yeah, we're wasting money
the
there. I was like, okay,
was terrible, but the decision was
absolutely. So I was like, yeah, ठीक है, like that's fine. Because it was a no-win situation. You have so much shit going on internally in terms of economics due to COVID. So obviously it makes no sense to spend so much money abroad. But then as this was happening or was moving towards its conclusion, he decides to, put like as if कि यार अब ये लोग बोर हो जाएंगे, अब कुछ और करना चाहिए हमें. I mean, such a stupid thing to do because it
Yeah,
doesn't. It seems like two different presidents made those decisions. Made
yeah.
those कि
There's
यार
no
एक
coherence in that in foreign policy. Yeah,
absolutely.
ये principle है मेरा. If it doesn't
हाँ
abide by that criteria, I'm not going to engage. If it does, this is my decision. Like it's not predictable. It's not. It's
हाँ.
not like
And
yeah,
what has NATO done since Russia invaded Ukraine?
just like
Fuck all.
क्या कहते हैं?
Absolute fuck all.
Yeah, just strong words,
Strong words. That's it. तो इसका
condemnation.
मतलब तो वो तो बेचारे फंस गए ना यूक्रेन वाले कि यार like कि हम we thought we were having some
यूक्रेन
back.
वाले तो यही सोच रहे थे that the president was thinking कि जैसे ही रशिया घुसेगा ये सारे घुस के आ जाएंगे दूसरी साइड से.
Huh.
That's what they were
But that didn't
thinking.
happen. Huh. Of course, because they're also such like so many miscalculations at so many levels, from a Russian level, from a Ukrainian level, NATO level, United States level. इतनी calculations हो रही हैं कि it seems as if they're all bored because of staying at home or whatever, like mask पहन के they're like
I
कुछ
mean, it's
करना है
almost
यार,
like कि
खुजली
चलो
हो रही है.
कोविड खत्म हो रहा है अभी नई चीज लाओ मार्केट में. It's
हाँ कुछ नहीं.
just so
It's such a
tiring.
fucking ridiculous thing. अच्छा एक चीज I also wanted to, which we also touched upon, is the whole media angle. ठीक है. A media angle is almost like वो नहीं होता कि the moment you start to form a long-winded sentence which means something, they start to stop you. No. Give me a yes or no. Are you with Ukraine or with Russia? And I'm seeing a lot of that. Okay, जिसमें any sane person who wants to get on TV and analyst get on and wants to like almost try and intellectualizes and put things into
उसके nuance
context.
provide करना is not acceptable, right?
No, it's like Afghanistan '03 all over again, because every time the likes of Bernie who tried to say, okay, you know what, this is not, they were like questioned for their nationality and we're like, dude, what do you mean? We've been attacked, so we have to go in Afghanistan, right? Or we've been attacked, we have to go in Iraq. So anytime you questioned it at the time, it felt like you were anti-national or you're like, you're not American enough or what have you, right?
Yep.
तो उसी तरह की मुझे वाइब्स आना शुरू होगी इन अ कॉन्फ्लिक्ट दैट डज नॉट इवन इन्वॉल्व अमेरिका डायरेक्टली और इनडायरेक्टली. लाइक ऐसा नहीं है कि उनके कोई soldiers are involved. And Ukraine, I mean, come on, Ukraine is, if United States is suggesting Ukraine is an ally, I mean, come on, it's the same ally as if like Haiti is probably.
I mean, you wouldn't give a
मुझे कोई
shit about
फायदा नहीं.
Ukraine if it wasn't next to Russia, basically.
हाँ,
They're an ally by
absolutely.
proxy or by virtue of the fact that they're situated beside a foe.
हाँ.
But yeah, but I mean, the funny thing is, media is actually they're having a tough time hiding their glee at the situation because this is like a rating.
Beautiful, yeah, it's perfect for them.
Like COVID खत्म हो रहा है तो नई चीज चाहिए. I was watching. I don't know if you saw that clip being shared online with CNN. They were showing like जो air horns नहीं बज रहे होते to warn people before an air raid is coming. So what they were showing that in Kiev, like really harrowing scene. अचानक से cuts to like Applebee's का break, and that's still on. So wow. Split screen with that on, and then Applebee's had someone do this dance.
This is real. Like it was
it
not
is
like
real.
a mistake.
It's real. It's actually real. It's like it's almost fitting. Like just how the mainstream media, and this is not just CNN, I think every channel feels this way because this is the time to cash in because all the eyes are on there. But this is just a fetish or this obsession with war, conflict, and it's part. I think media is almost part of this military-industrial complex because you don't see anti-war you don't see anti-war wings as being prominent on media. You don't see it anymore. You haven't seen it for 20 years. I don't think.
No, yeah, absolutely.
Like early 2000 में it was Fox basically just जो भी मुल्क दिखाए just वहाँ पे आप चले जाएं इन्वेट कर दें, like Iraq हो, Afghanistan हो, and now it just seems like every channel is in on it. So
actually, one thing I want to get your thoughts on is my last video was an impromptu episode that I did in my car, literally driving, and मुझे ये idea है दिमाग में, and I was like, कल सुबह तक if I record पता नहीं क्या story हो, but I wanted to get it out. So in that video, it's a 9 minute 10 minute video मैंने like episodes पे मैंने argue किया कि there was a lot of discussion about Imran Khan's presence in Moscow when this whole thing was happening, and even prior to that they were like every quote unquote intellectual in the country was pushing for him to not to go bahana kar de, like even this is not a joke but actually the kya naam hai, I think opposition in the Senate कौन सा बंदा है वो नाम याद नहीं आ रहा मुझे, दिस इज अ रियल थिंग, ही सेड कि इमरान खान को चाहिए था कि वो कोई बहाना करते थे कि मैं आई कांट वॉक और मुझे कोविड हो गया है तो मैं नहीं आ
Seriously.
सकता। सीरियसली हाँ, तो इन्होंने ये तक बात बोल रही थी कि कुछ भी कह सकते थे, they could have avoided this thing, and then I'm so sad to see like the likes of Almeida, ex-Don, opinionist.
It's sad because these people should know. They do know better.
They do know better, and because
They just
and
can't say
he's
it because of
the
the issues they have with the
obvious,
person.
absolutely they have obvious bias against Imran Khan. So, and it's sad because I used to read his opinion pieces.
I used to
used
read a
enjoy.
lot actually.
So
It's
the moment
become
you
intolerable now, actually.
absolutely, and it's just so like one dimensional, as if कि यार दिमाग नहीं उसका खुल रहा कि यार are you kidding me? अब वो कह रहा है कि इमरान खान should have घर आते ही ना एटलीस्ट 2 से 3 जनरल्स को तो सैक करना चाहिए उसे, बिकॉज उसने उन्होंने उसको एक डिफिकल्ट पोजीशन, ही इज नॉट फकिंग बाइडेन इन मॉस्को, ही इज अ प्राइम मिनिस्टर ऑफ अ वेरी इररेलेवेंट कंट्री, व्हाट
Pakistan
डिफिकल्ट
has
पोजीशन।
no horse in this race, so why हम क्यों वफादारी करेंगे किसी तरफ से?
नहीं वफादारी छोड़ो, लाइक क्या औकात क्या है टू बी ऑनेस्ट, लाइक कौन हो आप? क्या आपने अगर पुतिन से हाथ मिला लिया तो लोग कहेंगे ओ शिट इमरान खान हाथ मिला लिया, अब तो हमें भी सोचना पड़ेगा, दिस इज वेयर we don't
If
matter.
you just do a very simple cost benefit analysis here, right? I mean, you have to think of it from that way, right? Pakistan ne condemn kiya, cancel the trip. What is the cost potentially losing that pipeline deal, whatever, it's billions of dollars over the next 5 years? Benefit gap, hugs and prayers, like what are we going to get?
What are we, or especially
Admiration
from a side,
to Twitter likes,
from a side where Biden hasn't even had a conversation with Imran Khan yet.
Yeah, there's no alternative. Biden ने ये नहीं कहा कि यार उनसे तुम pipeline cancel कर दो, we'll have a treaty worth
अरे
10
जो
billion.
भी ट्रीटी छोड़ो, लाइक
बात ही
और
नहीं की, नहीं किया.
अब तो you know this कि F-17s का भी तो सीन खत्म हो रहा है ना. Now Pakistan is buying the Chinese versions of that, so they're moving away from F-16s.
Yeah, the most important
तो वो जो
interest
मिलिट्री
in-
रिलायंस जो थी वो भी अब थोड़ी कम होती डाइल्यूट होती जा रही है.
I think the Imran had no option but to continue. There's self-interest is the most important part of foreign policy. You have to take decisions based on interest of your own country.
अब वो
globally
हाँ
क्या कहते हैं तारीफें सुनने के लिए या ट्वीट पे लाइक करने के लिए आप नहीं ले सकते डिसीजन. Like this is
exactly, और that's what I want to happen. मेरा criticism इमरान खान का यही रहा है, and I've argued it in one of my episodes as well, कि भाई आप मोरल की तरफ से मत आओ, डोंट गिव मी द मोरल बीएस. आप मोरल, क्योंकि वो जो कश्मीर की बात करता है ना वो मोरल ग्राउंड्स पे करता है और ही ट्राइज टू पुट अप अ मोरल आर्गुमेंट. तो मेरा फिर होता है कि यार फिर मोरल आर्गुमेंट होगी पर तुमसे फालतू में सवाल चाइना का पूछेंगे, व्हाई आर यू
वहां पे या आप चाइना में जो कॉन्फ्रेंटेशन के खिलाफ
हाँ तो उनके तो एग्जैक्टली व्हाई डू यू पुट योरसेल्फ इन सो मच प्रेशर बाय क्रिएटिंग दिस आर्गुमेंट कि मैं एक मोरली अपराइट इंसान हूं. डोंट, just say it clearly कि भाई like the interest of my country and my countrymen is above everything right now. अब अगर उसको बोलो कि and he should like जो उसको मीडिया में सवाल पूछा जाता है ना, उसका सिर्फ आंसर ये होना चाहिए कि भाई अगर मैं अपने कंट्री के इंटरेस्ट में कुछ कर रहा हूं तो अगर कोई और कंट्री आकर ये बोल देना कि हमारे इंटरेस्ट में ये नहीं है फिर भी हम उसके अगेंस्ट जाएंगे तो फिर आप एक प्रेसिडेंट लिख दो. नो कंट्री डज इट, व्हाई आर यू एक्सपेक्टिंग मी टू डू इट?
No one would do it. No one is doing purely out of the goodness of their heart.
That doesn't exist. तो मुझे एक चीज समझ में नहीं आती. तो for the first time when he's like, you know, goodness of the heart, गया भाड़ में, whatever is happening, I'm just gonna go there and do my meeting and whatever जो भी. और FYI scheduled for over a year, it got delayed and cancelled and rescheduled because of COVID and all of that. ऐसा नहीं कि one fine morning they decided कि oh by the way World War III start होने से पहले जल्दी से मिल के आ जाओ. No, this was scheduled. This was on the calendars. The cost of cancelling and rescheduling would have been a lot for him. कि यार आप उसने क्यों avoid किया इस चीज को? It means you clearly have some
if
loyalty somewhere
meeting
else.
Putin brings increases our chances of having an economic boom based on, pipeline deal with Russia, you have to do it. You have to take that chance.
And against what? अगर चलो ठीक है मान भी लिया कि इतना इकोनॉमिक वो नहीं है तो what's on the other side? For
Like
4 or 5
countries won't
years,
sanction you because you met to. No one's gonna sanction you.
no one's gonna sanction you.
Plus, you're
Number
not
one,
even important enough to be sanctioned in the first place at this point.
like on what basis? ऐसा तो नहीं होगा कि sanction होने के और दूसरी चीज ये कि the relationship between the United States and Pakistan has been,
frayed, very, very frayed.
very frayed since for last 4 or 5 years at least. Yeah, अगर someone argues, so ever since that
second term, Obama second term, I would say.
Obama second term, exactly. Obama's second term के बाद has been everything's going down the hill.
Yeah.
और it's up now. It's at a point where it's like और दूसरे देख के हमने हाथ हिला ली. That's it. पहले वो गले लगना ये सब कुछ चीजें अब खत्म हो चुका है. And this is evident from the fact कि Biden became president. He called everybody. He called everyone. He had conversations with Modi and everyone. He didn't even acknowledge Imran Khan.
It's not like he forgot. It's a clear signal.
Of course, and it's fine as well. मैं कहता हूँ ठीक है यार. If your interests are somewhere else, if you feel like आपको your relationship would probably make more sense to you, then you do what's best for you. That's fine. But and
then we'll do what's best for us. We don't have to owe any fealty to the United States because long lost relationship as an ally 25 years ago. It makes
so every Twitter arty who's an intellectual जिससे मेरा खून खोला था all this time prior to Imran Khan going, and when he went, have been screaming, "Oh, you're embarrassing us. Oh, you're coming. वापस आजा पागल क्यों मनहूसत क्यों भरा रहा है वहाँ पर ये वापस आजा भाई कितना जलील कराएगा." तो वही तो मेरा दिमाग उसमें फटा था. तभी मैंने वो 10 मिनट की ग्रैंड रिकॉर्ड कराई थी. मेरे था कि भाई आपकी औकात क्या है? आप हो कौन? लाइक आपकी कोई हेरिटेज नहीं है, आपकी कोई हैसियत नहीं है कि आप जिस पे रख के आप बोलो कि भाई हमारी इज्जत ये थी असने ये कर दी. ओ भाई आपकी इज्जत वैसी डाउन द
ड्रेन है. only way is up at this point in time.
Exactly.
Like rock bottom.
You're absolutely rock bottom in your so there's nothing Imran Khan could have done. Even if अगर वो बॉर्डर पे जाके खड़े होकर जायजा ले लेता ना उनका कि अच्छा कहाँ बमबारी हो रही, तब भी वो आपकी जो ना साख को कोई इतना नुकसान नहीं होना था क्योंकि आपकी साख वैसे भी डाउन द गटर है. तो ही could have even वो तो उसके बावजूद भी तो उसने जो मीटिंग के बाद जो मीटिंग नोट्स इफ यू लाइक जो रिलीज हुए थे आफ्टर मीटिंग पुतिन, उसमें पाकिस्तान it played really smartly. सब बात करी and then बीच में लाइन भी लिख दी कि यार and regarding the current conflict with Ukraine, we believe that war is not the answer and they should resolve things amicably. We know because we've been
you cannot take
because we've been नहीं और फिर उन्होंने फिर उस चीज को रीजन भी किया है. And hats off to whoever wrote that. In my opinion, probably sounded a lot like Moeed Yusuf, who's an advisor to the Prime Minister, and he's a genius guy. He's a genious guy. So and said that countries like ours suffer the most because जो developing countries होती है ना इस the conflicts में सब ज़्यादा suffer वो करती हैं.
And forced to take sides or forced to take sides. We've gone through
that. We've gone through that with the Afghan war, gone through the war on terror. All of this हम सब सह चुके हैं. So we are hoping कि इसको amicably resolve किया. So it's a very good statement.
Yes, and the interesting factor here or interesting angle here is Pakistan and India are actually aligned for once on a global issue because India is essentially taking the same course of action. They're not really saying कि Ukraine का साथ देंगे हम लोग, or they're not even saying they're not praising Biden. They're basically saying this is not great, let's resolve it amicably, but they're not really launching any sanctions.
Is that why Indian Airlines जो है ना वो airspace उन्होंने avoid नहीं किया रशिया का और यूक्रेन का?
I guess
HMO वाले ग्रुप में वो देखा था मीम.
The line goes where I want to go.
No, जिसमें वो एक पिक्चर है ना जिसमें बताया था कि airspace
अच्छा जो पूरा एक पीछे there's a yawning chasm in between because there's no one going or flying.
No one going there. उसमें एक जहाज जा रहा था उसमें फिर उसमें जब उसने hover किया तो उसमें Air India लिखा हुआ था. तो उसमें भी मीम शेयर किया. I don't remember कि क्या कोड यूज किया ऑफिस का. But that's when I was like, really? मैं कहा Air India वाकई में like तो चौड़े में गुजर रहा है. I think it was like
probably not wise to fly over a war zone anyways.
I know, but
I mean Russians have demonstrated an ability to shoot down
planes, yeah, exactly,
planes as a mistake, but
हाँ. तो वो सब चीजें तो तो अगेन मेरा आई वाज पिस्ड ऑफ ऑफ दैट एंड आई वाज लाइक देयर इज नथिंग. तो एक मैंने कहा ना कुछ कुछ मामलात में प्लीज पुट योर बायसेस असाइड एंड एज मीडिया आउटलेट्स हु you know are supposed to at least sometimes speak the truth, sometimes know the
Sometimes,
context,
yeah.
because then if it's
I
wrong
think he was Imran Khan was put in a very difficult situation, but that is the best he could have done. Honestly, it was a difficult situation.
it was a difficult situation and he basically, I think, to his credit, he basically went in, shrugged it off, and came back. That's it. उसने कोई ज़्यादा उस पे कोई वो ना कि he didn't lull over it. फालतू में कोई attention उसने grab भी नहीं करी वहां पर जाके कि यार कोई उल्टी सीधी स्पीच दे देता वहां पर
Yeah,
खड़े
and on
होके.
the other side, Putin's not going to make plans based on whether Imran Khan is going to visit or not. He's not going to say, "Yeah,
He's
Imran Khan
not.
चले जाए फिर करता हूँ उसके पता कि वो निकल
हाँ.
जाए." He's
और
not going
इमरान
to do
खान
that.
आ जाए तो मैं उसको जलील करने के लिए, ये भी तो चल रहा है.
Yeah,
कि मैं
or that यार पाकिस्तान
ये
को
भी चल
जलील
रहा
करने
है
के लिए ऐसा करता हूँ.
कि
Like
मैं वो
as an
उसको
additional benefit to this conflict, पाकिस्तान को
कामरान
साथ में
खान
जलील कर देते हैं.
कामरान खान ऑफ ऑल पीपल वो क्या बोल रहा है. वो बोल रहा है कि जो when Imran Khan visited the memorial of the missing जो क्या है उनका मेमोरियल
Soldier.
वर्ल्ड. हाँ, वर्ल्ड वॉर 2 का जो मेमोरियल है उसमें ही विजिट, तो उसमें इमरान खान कामरान खान कमेंट क्या कर रहा है कि इमरान खान जाके रशियन सोल्जर्स के मॉन्यूमेंट पे विजिट करें, द सेम हु हैव हैड has had bloods of Afghanis on. I'm like,
What?
this is World War II. This is not the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan वाला बंदा नहीं है ये. They're two separate, completely generations here. And then also, I think it was Kamran Khan as well, या कोई और था, लेकिन एक prominent name था, जिसमें वो ये बोल रहे थे कि अरसे पुराना जो 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 पाकिस्तान से बदला लेना था ना, वो इस मर्तबा पुतिन ने ले लिया है, क्योंकि पाकिस्तान ने अमेरिका को बैक किया था और ये किया था वो किया था, और अब पुतिन ने कहा बेटा तुम आओ और तुम्हारे सामने मैं यूक्रेन की जंग शूट करूंगा ताकि तुम्हें और जलील करूं मैंने. और ये एंड दिस इज लाइक नॉट जोक, देयर से कि उनको एनालिसिस दे रहे थे कि यार दिस इज एग्जैक्टली व्हाट.
It's like it's an example of the like I think megalomania that we have. Like we think people actually take our feelings into account in terms of are they based decisions to influence or disgrace us? No, we're a speck of dust in the global
और
political
इसमें कोई बुराई
landscape.
नहीं है, और इसमें कोई बुराई नहीं
But I mean, like South Korea is also a speck of dust in terms of political landscape, but they're fine with it. They're thriving. Why can't
है.
we?
So Denmark, like
Like
nobody
you're
cares
fine.
about what.
Norway, like they're okay.
They're okay, they're happy, actually they're happiest in the world,
We
if you
don't have to be
consider all these things.
macho and important, like wielding weapons or being causing disruptions or
एक तो
sending ISI folks.
जिसने भी ये लसन अगर बेचा था ना ये, और जो कि शायद सही भी है कि स्ट्रेटेजिक डेप्थ वाला, अगर ये था भी तो भैया आप अपनी पर्सनल मीटिंग्स में इसको या इंटेलेक्चुअल लेवल
Yeah,
पे
it's a
थिंक
complete
टैंक.
bungel. Honestly,
हाँ,
it's a
नहीं
boss.
थिंक टैंक लेवल पे रखते हैं ना भाई. एक तो उसको उस स्ट्रेटेजिक डेप्थ को इतना एक अवामी लफ्ज बना दिया है जिसमें अब एवरीवन एक्चुअली बिलीव्स इट कि हम इतना स्ट्रेटेजिकल डेप्थ है हमारा, कि जिसमें वो स्ट्रेटेजिकल डेप्थ डज नॉट अप्लाई टू ईरान, जो कि यार हमारे बिल्कुल बराबर में फॉर सम रीजन.
It only is
जरा सा
applicable.
जरा सा इधर उधर होने से ना, लाइक एक स्पेसिफिक कंट्री से अप्लाई, नॉट द रीजन. एक्चुअली रीजन भी गया बाहर में, क्योंकि उसी रीजन में ईरान भी है, तो ईरान के साथ तो नहीं होता ये. ईरान तो स्ट्रेटेजिक डेप्थ कैसा नहीं है.
I think that's the deeper factor. One of the factors that really deeply impacts us is the way we have been sold on the importance of the military from day one, right? And it continues to this day. You see like
हाँ हाँ हाँ.
telefilms on ARY and all that. It sensationalizes military's achievement. I think the most audacious one was when they did a telefilm recently about something that we did in the 1971 war. I mean, that should be scrubbed from history. Like the only thing we should take from 1971 is the lessons we learned and be better from it. Not
If you
highlight
wanna,
military wins from that campaign, because it's
तुम
like
कौन सा
saying कि यार
तुम किसी
1945 में जर्मनी ने एक जो विलेज जीता था ना उस पे हम फिल्म बनाएंगे. No, they completely are obliterated, right?
आई नो
So,
लेकिन अगर तुम किस किस उसकी बात कर रहे हो जो 4 एपिसोड की थी.
नहीं, there was like a telefilm, a big movie with like a very strong cast. क्या नाम था उसका यार? It was named after the submarine पे थी. It's on
ओ
air.
अच्छा, वो हंगूर वाला.
Hangur, yeah.
हाँ, वो मैंने नहीं देखी, बट लेकिन इफ यू रियली वांट टू वॉच अ गुड डॉक्यूमेंट्री स्लैश ड्रामा ऑन द इवेंट्स ऑफ 1971, जियो पे आजकल एक आ रहा है जो पिछड़ गए. इट्स एक्चुअली अ मेमोir ऑफ अ पर्सन हु वाज हेल्ड इन बांग्लादेश, तो जो कि पार्ट ऑफ द आर्मी. उसने मेमोir लिखा था ऑफ व्हाटएवर ही सॉ. द वे इट हैज बीन फिल्म्ड, इट इज सच अ, होता है ना कि इफ यू आर वाचिंग इट फ्रॉम अ बांग्लादेशी पर्सपेक्टिव आपको समझ में आएगा फिर भी. Like you were not going to be like Bangladeshi totally like
Yeah, वही
enemies
तो
दिखा रहे हैं.
nuance is important because
बहुत यार मैं तुम्हें कहूंगा मैं
good
तुम्हें
versus evil like
और
100% that
उसकी
does not
और
exist.
उसकी जो एक्यूरेसी है ना इन टर्म्स ऑफ हिस्ट्री, क्योंकि मैं जब उसके एपिसोड्स देख रहा होता हूँ ना तो मैं फौरन कुछ इवेंट होता है, इट्स लाइक द क्राउन बेसिकली, व्हेन यू वॉच समथिंग आप फौरन उसको सर्च करते हो कि एक्चुअली क्या हुआ था, तो वो सारी चीजें एक्यूरेट है. और जो प्रोडक्शन है, मैंने दोस्तों को भी अपने बेचा था ये, एंड दे हैव स्टार्टेड वाचिंग एंड दे वर लाइक 100% एग्री. जो प्रोडक्शन वैल्यू है इट्स लाइक अ नेटफ्लिक्स शो. मैं तुम्हें आई एम नॉट इवन किडिंग, मैं यूजुअली जो है ना ओवर एग्जैजरेट नहीं करता कोई भी चीज फ्रॉम पाकिस्तान के, मैं बहुत बड़ा पाकिस्तानी हूँ इस वजह से. But if you really want to watch a show on Bangladesh and happenings of 71, you should watch that. क्योंकि उसकी एक तो नंबर वन प्रोडक्शन वैल्यू इतनी कोई हाई है, डायरेक्शन इट्स लाइक अ फ्रिकिंग नेटफ्लिक्स शो. जिस तरह नेटफ्लिक्स में नहीं होता कि
I'm
सीन
assuming
स्टार्ट
this does
होता है,
not, yeah, I'm assuming that does not glamorize our involvement in that because
it doesn't glamorize anything. It basically gives both sides of the pictures, जिसमें दिखाते
which
हैं
is
कि
fine, which is fine.
आर्मी ने मारा था लोगों को वहां पर, एंड देन उन्होंने उसकी रीजंस भी बताया कि यार लाइक बंगाली वर नॉट लाइक दूध के धुले, टू बी ऑनेस्ट.
That's what I'm saying. Especially foreign conflicts are not like 100% good versus
ब्लैक एंड
100%
वाइट
bad.
नहीं है, और उसमें बहुत सारी इश्यूज थे. लाइक आई हैव ओवर द कोर्स ऑफ माय अंडरस्टैंडिंग, मैं आई हैव बिगन टू अंडरस्टैंड यार, to be like fair, Bengali were a majority from like, yeah, East Pakistan was a majority.
Yes.
ठीक है,
Yeah.
तो ऐसा नहीं हो सकता कि एक majority country with more people is totally under the thumb of a minority country. ऐसा नहीं था. The fact that they got their own freedom is an evidence in itself कि यार ऐसा नहीं था, they did what they wanted to do and उन्होंने कर लिया
Yeah,
successfully.
but West Pakistan civilian leadership, they did commit a lot of blunders.
Oh yeah,
Chief
absolutely.
among
और वो
them
सारे
being obviously a
और वो
very
सारे ब्लंडर्स उसमें दिखाए हैं उन्होंने. दे फिल्म्ड इट उसमें. आई थिंक क्या कहते हैं, व्हाट्स हिज नेम यार, शेख मुजीब भी है, बट फॉर अ वेरी स्मॉल टाइम. उन्होंने उससे, इट्स नॉट शेख मुजीब स्टोरी, इट्स बेसिकली दैट गाय हु वाज एक्चुअली पार्ट ऑफ द आर्मी. तो वो मेमोआर उसने लिखे थे कुछ, उन्होंने उसमें चीजें डिफरेंट फ्रॉम हिस्ट्री के जितने जो प्लेयर्स थे उसमें उसमें उसकी कहानी में डाले हैं. वो नॉट
right.
पार्ट ऑफ द ओरिजिनल वॉर, बट दोज आर एक्चुअल पीपल, यू कैन सर्च. तो इट्स अ वेरी लाइक नुआंस्ड बैलेंस, जिसमें ये हो कि आपको गुस्सा भी आता है, देन यू अंडरस्टैंड, देन लाइक इट्स नॉट लाइक यार बहुत ग्रीन चल रहा है, और ऑब्वियसली ग्रीन हो भी नहीं सकता. लाइक जब जिस कहानी का एंड ये था कि आपसे मुल्क टूट गया,
Like all the
उस
months चला गया, obviously
हाँ, तो
there's
it's like there's no way to like उसको कोई आप
you
अच्छे
can't
अच्छे टाइप,
sugarcoat that for
हाँ,
sure.
you can't sugarcoat कि यार ये चले गए, you can't.
मगर वही है ना, the things that the enduring images in Pakistan from that conflict is just that the bravado at the UN General Council meeting of Bhutto, he tore up that
नहीं,
whatever.
और उसके बाद
Like that.
एक और चीज मुझे समझ में आई उसके बाद कि यार देखो, एवरी कंट्री हैज द राइट टू प्रेजेंट देयर ओन ओपिनियन एंड नैरेटिव ऑन व्हाटएवर कॉन्फ्लिक्ट दे हैव. यूनाइटेड स्टेट्स करता है इजीली, ब्रिटिशर्स करते हैं. एवरी हॉलीवुड फिल्म, जैसे यार स्नाइपर बनी, अमेरिकन स्नाइपर वाज व्हाट, glorifying someone who killed.
Yeah, it was a propaganda movie, and I watched it. It's
हाँ, तो
almost like it's verges on that horror
propaganda movie that was Oscar nominated. It was not like एक छोटी मोटी movie. To India's
ये
credit, at least
पाकिस्तान
Bollywood credit,
इंडिया वालों ने तो खैर
बिल्कुल
इस
करते
पे
हैं,
PhD किया हुआ
बिल्कुल
है इस
करते
तरह के
हैं,
movies में.
बिल्कुल करते हैं. But for if their movie gets like an award, हम कहते हैं यार वहाँ के award who matters. But if American movies like that, propaganda जो through and through propaganda थी, if they can have Bradley Cooper in them, an Oscar winner and all of
He
this.
was the main guy, right? Yeah.
He was the main guy. तो every country does it. तो अगर पाकिस्तान अपना point of view from an army perspective, अगर army अपना point of view बताना चाहती है, that's fine, as long as people are able to separate the truth from the क्या कहते हैं उससे, bravado-ness, या वो जो क्या कहते हैं, what's the word, extreme patriotism का कौन सा word होता है?
Nationalism or
नहीं, वो एक word होता है, jingoism. There you go. तो if as long as you can separate the jingoism from the reality, तो ठीक है, like fine, बनाते रहो, कोई मसला नहीं है, but that shouldn't become the narrative of the country. Like लोगों को realize करना चाहिए it's still facts और history अपनी जगह रखे हुए हैं, people can go and study them. ऐसा नहीं है कि जो ये बता रहे हैं वही करना.
I mean to say it's not just native to Pakistan, this type of
हाँ,
jingoism. It's actually quite
तो इस वजह से जो लोग हमारे जो लेफ्ट है पाकिस्तान में, जब इसको क्रिटिसाइज करते हैं ना, तो मुझे थोड़ा सा बैठती भी, इसलिए मैं कहता हूँ यार जैसे हमने लास्ट डिस्कशन में बात की थी आमिर लाकत और उसके ऊपर, और फिर हमने उसको
Right.
कन्वेल्ट किया था विद
And then the hip hop criticism as well, right?
डिकैप्रियो, हाँ डिकैप्रियो के साथ जो हमने वो किया था कि यार, यानी कि ऐसा नहीं कि पाकिस्तान अकेला ही कोई बंदा जिसमें एक पहला बंदा दुनिया का जिसने एक छोटी लड़की की औरत से शादी करी है या व्हाटएवर जो भी है, देयर पीपल हु डूइंग वर्स देन दैट। तो ऐसा नहीं है, लाइक वी शुडंट बी टू हार्ड ऑन आवरसेल्व्स। तभी मैं कह रहा था कि जब वो हम लोग बात कर रहे थे यूक्रेन वाली भी, जो लोग कहते हैं कि यार ऐसे कॉन्फ्लिक्ट में इन्वॉल्व, यस आइडियली if everything, like if there was no feelings involved, when Putin would never be hurt, और उसके दिमाग से ये मेमोरी डिलीट हो जाती है कि इमरान खान बोलता है यार अभी मैं नहीं आ सकता, बड़ा बड़ा हाई हाई फ्यूज चल रही है पोजीशन, तुम भी बिजी हो, आई अंडरस्टैंड, सो लेट्स जस्ट पोस्टपोन दिस ट्रिप। अगर वो एक्चुअली ऐसा कर सकता, ही वुड हैव डन इट, अगर उसके कोई रेप्रिकेशंस नहीं होते। प्यूटन भी कहता हाँ यार अंडरस्टैंड, चल ठीक है बाद में आ जाएगा बस। लेकिन ही न्यू दैट इन रियलिटी, इन रियल लाइफ दैट डजंट वर्क लाइक दैट। ऐसे नहीं होता कि वो बोलेगा कि हाँ चल, वो शायद बोल भी देता प्यूटन कि चल कोई मसला नहीं, लेकिन प्यूटन बहुत बड़ा हरामी है, वो कहता
Of
चल ठीक
course,
है
man.
तो
He would have gotten back in
ही
some
वुड हैव
way.
गॉटन बैक। हाँ क्योंकि उसके लिए तो उसकी इज्जत और उसकी वैल्यू वो सब कुछ सामने बहुत लाइक वो रखती है। टू क्लोज इट ऑफ, आई थिंक हाउ डू यू सी दिस कॉन्फ्लिक्ट, I don't know, resolving itself to like maybe a stretch, but what's the natural conclusion? What
I
do you
just
see?
don't know what the end game is, except for what you consider region Luhansk, and the other one I just can't, Donbass, I think.
जो
I mean,
अलग हुए हैं।
basically they're not on paper. They don't want to annex the entire country. They want to recognize sovereignty of two different areas within Ukraine who allegedly have declared independence. Right? It's hard for me to see anything else other than that independence, quote unquote. Which is, it's not independence. They're going to be proxy states on behalf of Russia, essentially. Let's not kid ourselves. But I just think that's probably where it's going, because number one, I just don't think the Western countries have accumulated enough support just morally, and it's based out of not having enough moral support. And I don't think they have the appetite or the strength of doing a full scale actual
Yeah.
global war. I don't think that's happening. But I think there's going to be a lot of disruption in the markets, of course, for the next 6 months or whatever. But unfortunately, I think what's going to happen is people are just going to see कि अच्छा ये हो गया, annex हो गई, whatever, and they're just going to move on. Exactly what they did when the Afghanistan debacle happened, Taliban आ गए. There was hue and cry for what, 6 weeks, and that's the end. It was done.
वो बहुत ज्यादा बोल रहा हूँ, 6 weeks
Yeah,
बहुत
6 is ज़्यादा ही बोल रहा हूँ. Probably like couple of
एक
weeks.
6 दिन हुआ था, मैं 6 दिन
moved on.
न्यूज में था, और then it moved on.
Which is why it reinforces my view कि media में वगैरह में people don't have a moral compass that they stick to. It's just
यार मैं इस चीज पे बड़ा मैं सोच रहा हूँ, and I want to do a podcast on this, hopefully with a media person maybe, यार हम लोग आपस में बात कर सकते हैं, क्योंकि मैं सोचता था कि यार जैसे मीडिया है, डॉक्टर्स हैं, यू नो ऑल ऑफ दीज लाइक नोबल कोट एंड कोट नोबल प्रोफेशंस। अब मेरा पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू नहीं है कि दे डोंट मेक मनी और ये बिल्कुल नहीं गुर्बत की लाइन की जरा से ऊपर रहे कि ताकि इनफ मनी बनाए, बट अनफॉर्चुनेटली जहां पर पैसा इन्वॉल्व हो जाता है वहां पर इंटरेस्ट चेंज हो जाता है। तो व्हाट्स दैट लाइन, कौन सा मीडिया आउटलेट है which is trending on that perfect line जिसमें they're making money, keeping their employees happy, but they're also not being influenced by the sponsors or people who are donating. I don't know, maybe NPR, but then NPR also has corporate sponsors, but they rely mostly on obviously like people like you or me to put money into that radio
I
station.
don't know. There's an ideal solution or state. मुझे नहीं लगता कि इसका कोई हल है जो कि बहुत आसानी से हम इसके बारे में हम बात कर सकते हैं, or we can propose.
What's that model look like? What's that? Then it means कि यानी कि फिर then this media business is bound to fail. It's like it's actually a business then. फिर तो such a, why would they tell me
then
the
again,
truth?
aren't businesses
It's not
just a
profitable.
reflection of their constituents, right? Maybe media is just a reflection of people essentially who are watching, right? So it's maybe they're just a vessel essentially. And although I don't think that's particularly true, because media driven agendas teams seem to amplify a lot of issues that people on the ground don't really care about sometimes. That's what
true.
So I think it's a mixture of those two.
तो इस पे बड़ा एक interesting, like I think एक theory बन सकती है just to have an open discussion कि यार what's that line? Is it like how do you make truth telling profitable? तो सब ट्रूथ
Right.
सच बोलना
Is
शुरू कर
anyone
देंगे.
doing it? Do we have best practices? I don't even
हाँ
know.
एग्जैक्टली लाइक वो तो बोल रहा हूँ कि ट्रूथ टेलिंग अगर मैं एक्सपेक्ट कर रहा हूँ आर्मी कर रहा हूँ मीडिया से, तो they will only do it if it's profitable, if it makes them money. How do you then do that? How do you make truth telling? Which is why I think फिर मैं वही तो कह रहा हूँ कि यार ये जो डिबेट होती है ना बिटवीन एथियस्ट एंड रिलीजन, ये सब चीजें ना, वन फ्रैक्शन ऑफ रिलीजन काइंड ऑफ ट्रम्प्स एवरीथिंग. जो एक फ्रैक्शन है रिलीजन का, जो कि रीजन और साइंस को थोड़ा सा पीछे रख के, बेसिकली बेस्ड ऑन इट मेक्स सेंस ऑल ऑफ अ सडन थ्रू दिस इज द हेयर आफ्टर, राइट? कि आप दुनिया में जो चाहे तबाही मचा लो, अगर हेयर आफ्टर का खौफ अगर आपके दिल में होता है ना, जो कि रिलीजन प्रीच करता है, ऑल रिलीजन्स डू दैट, तो वो बेसिकली डिटरेंट. इट एक्ट्स
Yeah, I
ऑलमोस्ट
mean,
लाइक
the religion's basically saying you cannot be moral just for the sake of morality.
you cannot escape like you cannot
Because
escape your immoralities in this world if you're able to, because technically you are. For example, if you're born in under the, like if you're born in the Murdoch family, you can do anything in this world and get away with it. तो
yeah,
फिर सेंस ऑफ फेयरनेस कहाँ पर एग्जिस्ट करता है? सेंस ऑफ फेयरनेस
and
कहीं
our
पे?
societies are a reflection of that because we have set up courts and police stations, like jails, punishments based on the fact that actions have consequences, and that's basically what religious or theology teaches us too, right? कि अगर आपके
Exactly.
actions के consequences दुनिया में नहीं है, it'll be somewhere else. It's going to happen, right?
It's
There's
going to
always,
happen. तो
yeah.
वो चीज
So
शायद वो जो तुम कह रहे थे ना, जो हम लोग बात कर रहे थे ना कि make truth telling profitable, it can only be profitable if the hereafter is considered as an element before you make a decision, before you go in sensationalizing something that shouldn't be sensationalized. You're like, यार ठीक है अभी तो पैसे बन जाएंगे, लेकिन आगे जाके क्या करूंगा, like आगे जाके तो मैं जहन्नुमी हूँ, whatever जो भी है, right?
right.
It's a very naive thing to say, maybe, I don't know, but I think on a much more um, you know spiritual level or a much more logical level kind of makes sense कि अगर ये element इंसान के दिमाग से निकल जाए, fear of consequences निकल जाए, then there's no limits to what this man can do wrong in this world.
Yeah, yeah, but it's easier said than done, of course. But
हाँ, तो वही मैं कह रहा हूँ ना, कुछ चीजें हैं जो science cannot provide the answer for, and religion does. In this instance, this is that differentiating factor where science can give you all the answers on some of the other things, and then when you ask
of
them
course,
about consequences, and they'll be like, I don't know, maybe just be a good person because it feels good. What do you mean? some
yeah,
some 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 people loot and rape because it feels good to them, so they should do
yeah.
that because it feels good? No.
Yeah, you
So
can't you
subjective.
can base it on some hedonistic pleasure. Okay, how much utility will really being good. So that's not a good enough
You,
fuel.
that's not good enough because it's probably for you but not for others.
Yeah.
Like people
But if you
in this.
have a moral compass or like universal law, which is basically what religion is providing, then you cannot say, it's subject to my interpretation or it's
No,
only
yeah, yeah.
for certain people who feel good about, not lying or helping the poor and stuff like
तो
that.
उसमें एक वो आ जाती है ना, सर्टेनिटीज आ जाती है कि भाई ये तो लाइक स्टैंडर्ड लॉज हैं जो आपके करने हैं, बिकॉज अगर आप नहीं किया तो आपके साथ ये होगा. तो अगर आपके साथ दुनिया में ऐसा नहीं होगा तो वो चीज तो स्टैंडर्ड, वो चीज तो एग्जिस्ट करती है कि वो तो होगा. अगेन आई थिंक इट्स अ फैसिनेशन डिस्कशन के all of these things sometimes जो हमारा एक urge होती है, people who practice religion to justify everything through science. I think that's a very like that limits your understanding of religion. I think religion has other aspects of existing other than science. Science is an aspect of religion, but it's not the whole of religion, because उसमें
Yeah.
spirituality है, उसमें
Yeah.
logic है, mantak that we refer to, right? तो वो mantak वगैरह, like you can't, and कि logic in itself is a science of its, like within itself, right? Things have to make sense before they're scientific.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. But that's a longer discussion.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a very, very important discussion to have. Anyway, I think this was another very good discussion. I think हमने सारे points cover कर लिए, our feelings towards the current conflict. At the same time, I think it's important to reiterate, note that people who are actually suffering on ground, the Ukrainian people, our hearts go out to them, and that's completely something that
They
we should be.
deserve a resolution to this.
They deserve a resolution to this from both, like, all parties involved. And again, I reiterate, the further United States stays away from this, it is actually going to serve Ukraine in ways that even they cannot imagine.
Yep.
Because
Yeah.
it's going to resolve a lot of issues with Russia. Then Russia will be like, ठीक है यार, जब तुम्हारे इंटरेस्ट नहीं है, तो it means कि genuinely कहीं मैं गलती ना कर रहा हूँ, कहीं फंस ना जाऊँ मैं. तो again, the more they involve themselves,
Aggression
they're going to
is,
bring
yeah.
they're going to bring the integrity level down to a very very stupid level, और फिर उसके बाद लोगों का नुकसान होगा और कुछ नहीं होगा. Anyway, okay, cool.
Yeah.
We'll be back with another discussion. Do subscribe to the channel. We're available on all audio formats in Spotify, Google, and Apple Podcasts. So follow us on that. I just recently saw you can rate our podcasts on Spotify.
I actually noticed that. I was a little it was like a mixed feeling, bittersweet moment there, because
but I'm like, that's good. If anyone so if people can, if you guys are on Spotify or listen to us on Spotify, drop us a rating. It helps other people find the show, because if it's highly rated or whatever,
100%.
so it helps people listen to this discussion if you found this a valuable discussion to listen to. Anyway, we'll be back with another one. Thanks a lot.